Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Thursday night, my favorite day of the week, because as you know, that means it's time for another episode of Disney Co. in the Know podcast. This is episode 13, and on tonight's show, Disney CEO Bob Chapek talks with MSNBC about park reopenings. Disney Springs is set to open in a few days. One of our favorite Broadway shows is coming to Disney Plus, and we discuss our favorite Walt Disney World boat rides. I am Bruce Beal, and tonight I am joined by Disney Co. in the Know contributors Elizabeth,
Hello.
Hannah,
Hey, y'all.
and Lydia.
What's up?
It is good to have you guys on the show tonight. But before we get to this week's Disney news, this podcast is sponsored by 407 and Beyond Vacation Company, Disney and Universal experts who help plan your family's perfect vacation. So all you have to do is show up, have fun, and create family memories. As always, our services are of no cost to you. Visit us on the web at www.407vacations.com. And to stay in the know, visit our blog page at www.407vacations.com/in-the-know. Well, there is a lot of anticipation for the upcoming week at Disney with a lot going on, even some reopenings. So let's just go straight to the news. Elizabeth, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Okay, so you can actually check this article out on the blog on 407 Vacations. Bruce wrote about it. So the CEO came and talked to, is it
MSNBC?
MSNBC, and they had a discussion talking about from parks, theme parks, to ESPN, to Disney Plus. So he covered a lot of questions that people were having, and the thing that we were most interested in was the parks, of course, because just last week, Shanghai did reopen at 30% capacity. And so our questions were, how is that going to translate to not only stateside, but also to Tokyo and Hong Kong? And he seemed pretty optimistic. He seemed, within the interview, he talked a lot about that people were following the rules very well, wearing the masks that he's anticipating will happen stateside, temperature, 30% capacity within the parks. And all of that is going well in Shanghai. So they're thinking it will translate well over into the States. However, he would not comment specifically. She asked, are you thinking a July reopen? And he wouldn't comment on that. So I think we know going into it that we're probably going to be having to wear a mask, which he did comment, which I was interested in, that he's like, I know it's going to be warm out, and so this will be something that we will have a challenge of. And then also commented on having a temperature check and staying the 6 feet apart for social distancing. And I also found it to be interesting because she asked if you think that the parks will ever get back to 100% capacity this year. And he does seem optimistic that that will happen. So that's always good to read and hear as well. And then a few other key things that I thought were interesting that he talked about were Disney Plus. He talked about, she asked, what are some of the, do you have enough basically video for the next few weeks because or months because of production? And so he was commenting that a lot of the shows that they've created, like Mandalorian, for example, is in post-production. So that will definitely be releasing on its date that it's supposed to be, which is exciting for Star Wars fans. He also talked about the push of Mulan. Mulan was supposed to release at the end of March, and now it's going to be July, and they're actually going to be at the theaters for Mulan. So I can't wait for us to all go. And so he had some great insight on that. And then he also mentioned the ESPN, the sports, what that looks like. And he was commenting that it's actually been up. ESPN has 11% up from what it normally would be because of having certain, like the NFL draft they had. And then, but he did not comment if any sports will be happening, live action sports. So overall, it was a really good interview. He gave some really good answers. He commented that Disney loves to stay optimistic, which after listening to the interview, I felt optimistic after it. And I just think we have to keep doing our part to not spread COVID, washing hands, staying 6 feet apart, and we can get back to Disney soon, hopefully.
All right. Yeah, that's a lot of good information from
a lot of information
from that interview. Yeah. But I wanted to piggyback off of that a little bit and just discuss. I saw a BuzzFeed article on the opening days of Disneyland Shanghai, They had been closed for 3.5 months, and they just opened up their doors again on Monday of this week. And they had several accounts posting on there about what it looked like for guests to wear the mandatory masks. It showed all of the tape on the floor, whether it be for attractions or shows. And it did show the temperature screenings, which I thought was really interesting. It looked like a tool that they use on the forehead. There were 3 levels of temperatures, I guess. And if you didn't qualify in the green, which was the good to go temperature, then you were refused entry into the parks. So I thought this was really interesting. And I can only imagine that we're going to see similar, if not identical, measures taken at domestic parks.
And that's what he was commenting on. Yep, go ahead, Lydia.
You're in the, okay, for everyone who doesn't know, I call Elizabeth Biss.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not saying another word. But I'm not in the medical field, and so this might be a completely stupid question, but like when you're in Disney, it's sometimes like 100 degrees and they take your temperature. Like, does the temperature affect your internal temperature? Like, will they have to take that into account?
Mm-hmm. Speaking for someone who works in the medical field, it does have an effect on the external will infect your internal. And actually, the opening day, I was following a girl on Instagram, and she is a teacher in Shanghai, and she went on opening day, and I was following her stories, and she actually tested high. And I don't know how much I should disclose of this, but they told her to just walk away. She walked away for a little bit. She drank some cold water, and she came back and they reread her temperature and she was fine. So I think that's an interesting point. And Bob had mentioned in the interview, like along kind of piggybacking off of that about the face masks. Asian culture, it's very normal for them to wear face masks prior to COVID. It's just part of their culture. Here, it's going to be a little bit different in the States. So I think that transition maybe was a little bit easier because they already kind of follow some of the precautions already. So it will be interesting to see how that translates to stateside. So,
yeah, I think that'll be really interesting. And I know that like here in Ohio, there was a lot of kind of kickback about the masks. They tried to make it mandatory for going into shops and people got pretty upset. And obviously going to Disney isn't a mandatory thing. It's, a fun thing and an experience that you get to have. And if you don't comply with their rules, you're not going to be allowed in. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how people react. And I hope that people will like be willing to follow those precautions and stuff for the whole time while they're in the parks. And I think that most of the people who will want to go to Disney when this is done will be willing to like follow those measures and keep everyone safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. It boils down to everyone being safe. It might be super uncomfortable and it might just get really hot, but at the end of the day, you're back at Disney, you're healthy, hopefully, and you have to wear a mask and get your temperature checked. I think bottom line, it's okay.
I wonder if this will affect like their busy season. Like if people will be less likely to go in the summer because of having to wear a mask. Like if this mask continues for like the next year or so, like maybe people will be more open to going in the off season, like when it's like January or February. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
People might be more willing to go in the off season now too, because when they open, they are going to be at a limited capacity, we're assuming. So in order to go, you may have to wait until the off season just because of numbers. So we might get to kind of see an increase in people going in the off season and experiencing some of the cool things then too.
I'm also interested in how they'll do the limited capacity. When he was talking on the interview, he was saying that they sell the tickets, so they sell them a week in advance. And so I was like trying to think how that would work in Florida, since, you have families coming in from across the United States planning trips. You have people who live down in Orlando just going over to Orlando, how that's going to
So Elizabeth,
work.
I can talk to that point. That is that ticket sales technique or parameter is unique to Disneyland Shanghai. So I don't think that they're going to try that here in the States.
Right, and that's what he was saying. It's unique to them, and they're going to start increasing over there. Each week, they're going to watch the numbers, but they're going to increase guests by 5,000 guests each week at this point. So, and release more tickets. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting how they will control that in the States.
Yeah, I think to all of your points, I really think that guests here in the States are going to need to get used to these parameters being at the parks. I think this is going to be the new norm for quite a while. And people need to remember, I think it was to Hannah's point, that Disney is private property, and they want to open, they want guests to come. Yes, they're losing parks and resorts revenue, and so they want to open, but it is private property, so they can set these parameters. They want to have guests in, but also keep guests safe. So if you want to enter a Disney park, I think for the foreseeable future, you're going to need to wear the mask and also have your temperature taken, perhaps. So, we'll keep you all posted on the blog page, and I'm sure on episodes to come as we get closer to Disney World and Disneyland reopenings. So, thanks a lot for the news story, Elizabeth. Hannah, let's go to you. What do you have for us this week?
So Disney Springs, which was formerly known as Downtown Disney until 2015, is set to reopen on May 20th. So super exciting. Very pumped. That is Wednesday. They're going to be opening. So Disney Springs has 104 shops, 64 dining stations, and 23 live shows. Not all of those things are going to be opening at once. They're going to be opening things a little bit at a time. And they're actually starting with the shops and the restaurants that are owned by third parties, not the ones owned by Disney. So the third-party shops and restaurants are the ones that are going to be opening up first. And this is all following in accordance with the phases laid out by Florida's government for reopening. They're going to be following some measures to keep everyone safe. Masks are required by all guests and all workers and cast members. They're going to have increased training in safety and health measures for the workers. And then there's also going to be limited contact between guests and the service members. So super excited that Disney here in the States is kind of starting to roll some things out and get some things open again. I'm super pumped.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, not to go back to my article, but he had mentioned that I forget what it's called in Shanghai, like their downtown Disney was open for a month prior to them opening up the park. So I wonder if this will be like open for a month and then maybe they'll start to open up parks. I don't know. I was just thinking about that when you said that, Hannah. So that could be maybe a possibility.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And from what I understand, I believe you can't purchase tickets to Disney until July. So that kind of month from the opening of Disney Springs to a possible park opening would make sense with that timeline. But right now they haven't released any information on the parks and resorts opening or the Disney-owned stores in Disney Springs opening either. Right now it's just those third party.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I think that's a great point because I think that they're going to try to model what was going on or the reopening strategy at Shanghai. So I think they're going to test the mask wearing and the temperature taking and that type of stuff at Disney Springs and then see how they can implement that in the parks. So I think that's a good point. Hannah, I did find a few rumors and news about which restaurants potentially might be opening for sure. So I have heard that Joffrey's Coffee and Tea Company will be open, Haagen-Dazs Ice Cream, The Polite Pig, Morimoto Asia and Morimoto Asia Street Food, STK Orlando, Wine Bar George, Wolfgang Puck Bar and Grill, and there's some more. But those are kind of the headliners that I have heard are going to be part of this initial opening of Disney Springs.
Fantastic. That seems like a nice variety of restaurants that are opening as well. So hopefully that'll pull some people in. And
in similar news, I do know that CityWalk over at Universal opened this week, and they're going through a similar strategy. So social distancing, mask wearing, and limited restaurants being open. So if you've been following along on social media, on the parks reopening. You'll see photos from CityWalk's attempts at reopening. I have not heard of any issues yet coming from that. So hopefully that's a good sign that Disney Springs can mimic and do the same.
Yeah, it was interesting watching social media yesterday or a few days ago with the reopening, and I was following along someone going into Voodoo Donuts, which is like one of my favorite places over there, and it was quite the process to just get some donuts. So they had to like wait outside. Only one customer was allowed in at a time. They were only allowed to talk to the one cashier. Then that cashier like swapped out. They walked them out. And then there's a very famous photo, which we've posted on our Instagram before, of us sitting in the Voodoo Donuts chair. It's a very famous chair down there that you can sit in, and it's covered with donuts and everything. And they had a cast member out there wiping down the chair so people could still get their photo with the famous chairs. So it was kind of weird to see. It was also, we haven't seen a lot of like social media live in the park stuff, obviously. So it was kind of weird, like seeing stuff, but also really warms the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I was muted there. Yeah, it is good to see, things reopening in a safe manner. So now that we've covered the parks and CityWalk and Disney Springs, let's talk about what we can watch on Disney Springs to cover our time. So Lydia, what do you have for us with what's coming to Disney Plus?
So this is super exciting. So Hamilton, you guys hear me?
No, hold on. We'll give you a second here for your internet connection to go back. You're just chopping out there. So go ahead and try it again.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. Oh, quarantine. So Hamilton is hitting Disney Plus July 3rd, and they actually are doing that just in time for Independence Day. So this is over a year in advance of the movie's planned theater release, which was going to be October 15th of 2021, and they fast-tracked it actually because of the pandemic and everything going on. And it's cast, which is like the best part of it. And the film is comprised of 3 performances from 2016. Did you guys get my thing where?
We're getting parts of that. So so what I can reiterate while your internet connection goes back is that this is releasing a year early and will be released on July 3rd, right? Right in time for the 4th. And you were giving us some further details. So let's see if we can go back to Lydia.
So it's the original cast, which is the best part about this. Just let me know if this internet breaks out. And so it was filmed in 2016, and it's comprised of 3 performances. So it's going to, I'm sorry, but the main thing that's coming from this is they're worried that Disney Plus is going to censor it, which I thought was an interesting topic. So Disney Plus has already censored a few things. They censored a post-credit scene in Toy Story 2 where Stinky Pete promises to Barbies that he can get them into Toy Story 3, and they did that in light of the Me Too movement, which totally makes sense. And then they censored a partial bare butt in the 1984 film Splash. So they've done a few things. A New York Times reporter found out that, they might take out a few words here and there, but they won't take out any sections, which is good to know. But for the most part, they were actually talking about how, the F word is actually already censored in Hamilton and a few of the songs. So, that's to the original soundtrack. And sometimes it's not. So we'll just have to see what happens. But hopefully, they won't cut any scenes because the internet's going to freak out if they do, I think. So yeah, but it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited to see it. I'm so glad that they're bringing this to, everyone, especially since, theaters have been closed, movie theaters are closed. This will be a great addition to Disney Plus. And, you know, I've only seen it once live, so I cannot wait to just constantly stream it over and over and over again.
I have a confession to make. I have actually never seen it or listened to the soundtrack.
Oh.
You've never even listened to the soundtrack?
Nope. So, as someone who hasn't seen it or doesn't know anything about it, do you guys feel like watching it on Disney Plus is going to be like an okay introduction to the story in the show?
I don't think it's going to be like as fantastical, like phenomenal, I guess would be the right word. But I think it's still going to be great. Like I've seen Broadway shows like in a movie form, and it's still really good. And they even reassured audience, they're like, this is professionally done. Like this is good. Like they'll make sure like, so I don't think it's going to be like you sitting in the audience and it's just going to be like a flat camera on the stage, you know, like it sounds like they're going to be like up front, like with the characters more, but it is in a stage setting. So you won't see like, you know, a different backdrop or anything like that. There'll still be stage lighting. It's not like a film, so they're still going to be singing and rapping everything. There won't be like lines. So it's literally like the actual production just on the screen now.
And I think the hardest part, I think the thing, since Bruce and I have both seen it live in Chicago, and it's just incredible how they just never stop. And I don't know if you'll actually understand that, like watching it on Disney Plus, if that makes sense. Like you might think like, oh, they're stopping here and they're taking a break, but they never stop. The only time they stop is intermission. And so they never stop singing. They never stop. Like it is incredible because like that's half of it, you know? So I think that's going to be maybe a part that you might miss a little bit from not seeing it live. But I also would recommend listening to the soundtrack first and then watching it, because that helped, I think, a lot just with following along and understanding and hearing some of the stuff. I can send you my whole collection of stuff.
If you are a history buff, I mean, you don't have to listen to it beforehand. My dad didn't listen to it beforehand, and he knows how, you know, history happened. So if you're already familiar with how our country got started and Hamilton's hand in that, then I think you'll be fine too. So.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points. I would also add that I don't really have a whole lot of concern about this translating into a show that we watch on TV as opposed to see it on stage. Because even when you just listen to Hamilton music, you can get the emotion, you can get the feeling and everything else. So I can only imagine that's going to be enhanced seeing it on the screen. Now, I don't know if anything will be watching it live in person in the theater, but I do think that they're going to do a really good job with the adaptation to the screen. So I'm really excited. I can't wait for this to come out.
Me too.
So.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see the original cast. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lydia.
I am too. Yeah, I'm excited too, because like we, you know, even if you see it live on stage, like you still think like, man, I wish that was Lynn up there. You know what I mean? So it's going to be really cool to actually see them doing it. I mean, I've watched like when the original cast performed it at the Tonys, and I got goosebumps. So I'm sure that it's going to be just as good, if not better, when I mean, it will be better when they put it on Disney Plus, since it is the actual performance.
And Lin-Manuel has so much Disney now, like under his belt, like Moana, Mary Poppins Returns. I know a few other things that he's working on. And so I think people know who he is now more than just Hamilton. And I think they're going to really appreciate watching him up on the stage as well. So I'm excited to see him.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally agree. Lydia, thanks a lot for telling us about Hamilton.
Yeah.
We are
my internet garbage.
That is okay. That happens. That's part of doing these podcasts on Zoom. So
right.
I'm sure our listeners and viewers understand. So
Thanks, guys.
so with that, let's move over to our discussion of the week, which is our favorite Walt Disney World boat rides. So Disney World is sort of famous for having these great immersive boat rides as attractions. And so today we are going to talk about our individual favorite boat rides. So just to kind of get us going a little bit and in the mood to think of boat rides, I've comprised a list of 10 of them throughout Walt Disney World parks to get us started. So we have the Liberty Square Riverboat at the Magic Kingdom, the Grand Fiesta Tour starring the Three Caballeros in Epcot World Showcase, the Navi River Journey in Pandora at Animal Kingdom, Living with the Land at Epcot, It's a Small World and Fantasyland at the Magic Kingdom, the Jungle Cruise and Adventureland at Magic Kingdom, Frozen Ever After in World Showcase, Pirates of the Caribbean in Adventureland at Magic Kingdom, Cali River Rapids at Animal Kingdom, and Splash Mountain in Frontierland at the Magic Kingdom. So I just wanted to provide a list. You don't have to necessarily pick from those, but just to kind of get us going on what qualifies as a boat ride. One attraction you will not find on this list is Peter Pan's Flight, because even though you're in a boat ride, there's no water. So let's start with Lydia. Lydia, what is your favorite boat attraction at Walt Disney World?
So I'm going big. I love Splash Mountain. It's so great. I'll give you guys a little background on it. So it's based on the 1946 film Song of the South, which is actually kind of controversial. And it's not on Disney Plus, so you won't be able to watch it in order to prepare for this ride. But the good thing is you don't really need to watch it. It takes the animals that are featured in the film and kind of talks about that a little bit. And it's just so cute. It has the famous Zippity Doo Dah song, which even if you've never ridden the ride, you probably have heard the song some point in your life. And it follows an almost 12-minute storyline of Briar Rabbit as he leaves his cute little briar patch to go on adventures, and he's getting hunted by a fox and a bear the whole time. So it's pretty cute. Some fun facts, which I think are awesome. There's 5 drops. My favorite one is when you go into the bees. That one's really fun because it kind of
Love that one.
It's like down and then goes back up and then goes back down again. So that one's a blast. And then there's the big one, of course, which is just over 50 feet. And you get up to speeds of 45 miles an hour, which I had no idea. And I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I screamed my lungs out when I on that ride. I mean, that's pretty fast, So, of course, fast passes are available. This is one of the most popular attractions in the Magic Kingdom. I was going to ask you guys, Bruce or Elizabeth, I don't know. I remember running to get the paper fast passes in the morning when we'd show up as a family. And it was like, okay, Dad and I will go to Splash Mountain. Mom and Elizabeth and Meredith, you guys go to Space Mountain. Go. And it was like a team effort. But now it's, of course, all digital. You use it with your Magic Bands. So how does that work? Do the fast passes go really fast? Have you noticed with God, I just lost my train of thought. Splash Mountain.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's really funny that you asked that because we just had a show not long ago on YouTube and on iTunes about fast pass strategy at the Magic Kingdom, and I think it was Evan who suggested that you got to get one for Splash Mountain. So Splash Mountain is, one of the premier mountains, if you will, at the Magic Kingdom, along with Big Thunder and Space Mountain. And those fast passes do go pretty quick, especially, being in the Florida heat. Everybody likes to have a water ride where you get wet a little bit. And lines can get a little lengthy for Splash Mountain. Another thing to keep it in mind, though, that sometimes during the winter months, this attraction goes down for refurbishment. And so it might not be available certain months out of the year for that reason. But Elizabeth, do you have anything on the Fast Pass Plus side?
Well, I was just going to say my strategy for it, which you can, like Bruce said, we just did a whole podcast on strategy with fast passes in the Magic Kingdom, which is really fun. So you have to take a listen to that. But my strategy with this ride is get the fast pass, make sure it's in your top 3 that when you get it in the morning, because it's warm in Florida. So it's going to be much easier to dry off in the Florida sunshine as you're walking through the park. And then if you don't mind skipping the nighttime show and the parade, it's a great ride to get back on because the lines are very, very short in the evening. And I absolutely love this ride in the evening because when you come up and you're just coming through the mountain, you get a glimpse of Cinderella's castle, and sometimes you can catch the fireworks, and it's just really peaceful, and it gives you a nice view from Frontierland. And so then you can get back on the ride. We've done that multiple times where we'll get off the ride. There's no line because the nighttime show is happening, and we, consistently do it. So there's definitely a strategy to this ride.
Yeah. Lydia, did you know that when you are going up Chickapin Hill, or before you go down, the big hill, that when you look up, when you see, outside from the caves, that is the side profile of Mickey Mouse. So it has its own hidden Mickey, but built into
oh, really?
built into the mountain. Yeah. So it's
is it like profile. The side? So does it have his nose and everything?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh, exactly. I did not know that. That's a fun fact. I have some other. Oh, go ahead, Vis.
Oh no, go ahead.
I just had some other. I'm gonna go ahead. So I have some other fun tips to keep in mind.
Perfect.
So yeah, you did cover the one about riding it at night. I absolutely love riding it at night. It's actually, I enjoy it more riding it at night than during the day, and you might not dry off as quick, but you can go back to the hotel. So we have so many great memories on this. My mom is famous for covering her entire body in a poncho when we ride this ride.
Not fair.
And so I don't think I've ever seen her face on the camera. But that's of course something you guys can do. They do allow ponchos on. You can cover up if you don't want to get wet. You can also do a lot of fun poses. There's so many great ideas out there for posing on this ride for the camera when you're going down the big hill. I've seen stuff. I always do the double peace sign. I'm not a fan of Nixon, but I just do it. People have held up signs. People have asked other people in the boat to marry them. People have been eating nonchalantly or reading the newspaper. People are playing chess. I saw people playing Monopoly. People were playing beer pong. They had the whole boat to themselves. So someone was sitting up front and someone was sitting in the back. They were playing beer pong. So it's people get really creative on how to take photos in this. It's absolutely hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, look out for the water canyon when you're coming around that bend. And the other boat is going down, you can get splashed, and it's you can get really wet there. So if you don't want that, just kind of duck your head. And then of course, a great tip is the more weight overall, the bigger the splash you'll get. If you put more weight in the front, it will cause a bigger splash. I remember getting on with my dad. Him and I were in the front. And then this other guy, got on. He was literally, I'm not even kidding you. He was 6'7" with his almost toddler child, so it looks very unproportional. And we flew. I think we got through that ride in 10 minutes. And so huge splash. It's so much fun. So if you have all your adult friends with you, absolutely load up that boat and get on there, because you guys will get wet. So yeah, it's a fun ride. And I rode it with a parka on when it was chilly there, and I still had fun. It wasn't bad. So yeah.
I also think with that ride, people finish the big hill, is it Chickapin Hill versus?
Yeah.
Chickapin Hill, and you think, oh, I made it out. Sometimes you make it out, you're okay, I didn't get wet, this is great. And then lo and behold, there's this very annoying waterfall at the end that if you sit on the right side of the boat, you will get hit, and they do not turn that off in the wintertime. We have been there in December and January, and you get stuck at this spot and just water hits you the entire time, and it's the most irritating because you're I missed this giant hill, and then this little waterfall gets you. So
that is so true. Lydia, good pick. Definitely a classic attraction at the Magic Kingdom. Hannah, what about you? What's your favorite boat ride?
I would say my favorite is Pirates of the Caribbean. I am a huge fan of the movies, and the ride came before the movies, and I think that's something that a lot of people, my age and younger, who grew up with the movies, already kind of coming out or being out, don't necessarily always know. But I just feel it's such a classic ride, and I know we talked a while back about it, and how it's just like I said, it's a classic ride, and you think of going to Disney and the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. It is a dark ride, and the animatronics, I think, could be a little spooky for some of the younger kids, so that's definitely something you would want to look out for if you have, really little kids. they could be a little bit creepy. But I think it's really fun. It like winds through this fort, and there's supplies, and there's cannons, and there's people fighting, and a pirate ship, and you've got like the skeletons that like have stolen the treasure, and they like go from skeleton back to person, and you've got the voices of Barbossa and Jack Sparrow, and the music from the movies plays in the background, and it just, you really feel like you're kind of in them. And for someone who's a huge fan of the movies, and like getting to kind of live a part of that in the ride is so much fun.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite boat rides in general across the parks. There's a show on Disney Plus called Props, and it's really cool because it talks about them using some of the actual props from the movies in the ride. Like they've transitioned it over, which if you're a fan of the movies, that is really fun to watch, to see those actual props being in, the famous Pirates of the Caribbean ride. But this ride is just classic Disney. Have to ride it a few times when you go to Disney. It really shows Disney's like storytelling side quickly, quote unquote quickly, like through a boat ride. Like you get a lot of information, but you leave there and you're like, okay, like I understand exactly what just happened, and it felt like watching the movie in a sense. Like there's the little aspects like Hannah mentioned from the movie that if you're a fan of the movie, you definitely get in the ride.
And one cool fact. So one cool fact about it is there is a couple of skeleton pirates playing a game of chess. I think it's towards the beginning, and that is something that you can only find at the version at Walt Disney World. And the Imagineer who was designing the Walt Disney World one was kind of tasked with putting in like a fun little thing just for Walt Disney World, and so he has these two skeleton pirates playing chess. So a fun thing to keep your eyes out for.
So
you're gonna give the fun fact, Bruce?
Yes.
Yeah, Bruce has a fun fact today.
This is my fun fact. I love this imaginary in a queue. And so not only are the skeletons playing chess, but they are in a position with the pieces that they have on the board that neither one can win. So they're going to be playing chess in perpetuity forever. And so what a great little touch and little detail for this attraction.
Yeah, the queue is beautiful in this ride. It's like at Disneyland, it's all outside, but for the most part. But in Disney World, it's all inside, and it's beautiful. And you walk through like jail cells, and you get down to like the docks, so you feel like you're outside. I mean, it's just a great ride. And another thing is they added Jack Sparrow in after the ride, after the movies came out, which is pretty cool. So now you can kind of look out for him, and his animatronic is like 1,000 times better than the other.
Yeah, it's so lopsided.
Much newer.
It's right at the end, and he's kind of like sitting up in this big chair and singing like a song, and so it's definitely a fun one to look out for. And I know out in California, I don't know if he's ever done it in Florida, but I know that Johnny Depp has dressed up as Jack Sparrow and gone and like hidden among the animatronics and then like jumped out and talked to people, which I just think is a fun little fact too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this ride was famous a few years ago or last year for taking out a very famous part of the ride. The redhead, the woman that they were quote unquote auctioning off, and they decided to make her more of like being in charge of the crew, and she became a pirate. And I know some of people with Disney that long-term time fans were upset about, but at the same time, it was probably the right call, and I think it looks awesome what they did with it, and it's a really good part now.
Yeah, I have a postcard of it.
Oh,
so
nice.
This is to look like, and it's definitely not politically correct, but it's also exactly what pirates did back in the 1700s. So, but I get why they have to take it out.
I think it was a good move to redesign and reimagineer that scene in the ride. It feels a little better now as you go around that scene. I think that they missed the mark a little bit with the voice character. We have all of these pirates throughout the ride, and they're drunk and they're stumbling around and they're groggy with these voices. And then there's like this super like high pitched mom voice coming out of the female pirate. It just sounds like, oh, this is such a great, reimagineering of this scene. but why doesn't she sound like a pirate also? Because she is a pirate. So I think it was a great reimagining of the scene. But I just, every time I go by there and I hear the voice, I'm like, oh, it should just be like super piratey. But
I'll agree to disagree because I like the voice. I think it's fine.
I can't recall it.
I know we've had that discussion on the boat before. Like we're sitting there and Bruce will make the comment of, I don't like this voice. And I'm like, I think the voice sounds fine.
You should just put a few R's in there maybe.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. And I think we can all agree at least though, that there's not much better than the smell of the water in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth is frozen.
Yeah. I even saw a post during this whole quarantine. Give me 1 second.
No, you're good. Well, Elizabeth is figuring out her technology issues.
We're having some technical difficulties. Is that better?
No, not yet. We can hear you, but we can't see you. So you go ahead and figure that out. I'm going to go ahead and talk about my favorite boat ride at Walt Disney World, which is the Living with the Land attraction. So this is by no means a flashy attraction. This is just classic, not even classic, I guess. It is educational. It's classic Epcot, I should have said, where it's entertainment and education. And it's called Living with the Land. It is a slow moving boat ride in the Land Pavilion. So right before you get to World Showcase. And I thought that the description online said it best. So I'm going to read the description to you guys. Here it goes. So it says, see firsthand how Walt Disney World horticulturists are using innovative growing techniques and crossbreeding high-yield crops to help feed a growing planet. All right, so it's exciting already, right? Discover a cornucopia of fruits and veggies from around the world. Every kid wants to see that. Some modified to jaw-dropping effect. Feast your eyes on edible food crops from around the world. Glimpse hybrid stripped bass, tilapia and catfish, and freshwater shrimp in our fish farm. On this eye-opening tour, you'll be inspired by a hopeful vision of farming's future. I mean, that's as exciting as it gets. No, but not being facetious, this attraction, I don't know what it is about it. It is relaxing. I love going through the different scenes, like the rainforest, the desert, the prairies, and then you get into the greenhouses and you're seeing how the Disney horticulturists are building or growing these plants. There's a lot of hidden Mickeys. It has an incredibly fun overlay, and it's so simple. It's just Christmas lights shining on fruits and vegetables. But there's something about this ride that I have to do it every time I'm in Epcot. And it's just so great. So I'll stop, geeking out about Living with the Land. Does anyone have anything to make fun of me about before we get to Elizabeth's ride?
I love Living with the Land. I love it. I love plants and nature. And it's actually it's a really important topic that everyone should know about. Hunger is a serious problem. And it's, we should discuss it more and talk about the farming industry because it is, complex. So yeah, this breaks it down in a really simple and fun and colorful way, which Disney does so well.
Right, exactly. And something that people don't know is, that they actually use these fruits and vegetables in the restaurants at the parks. So this is a working greenhouse farm that they actually are growing their own vegetables and fruits to serve on the plates of guests at Walt Disney World.
Yeah, I've seen on a few of the buffets where they'll make a mark of oh, this is from Living with the Land. This lettuce is from Living with the Land. Because if you've been on the ride, you've seen the hydroponic lettuce, which is the lettuce floating in the air with all the pods. But this ride to me, I love so much. I by trade am a dietitian and I love fruits and veggies, and I get so excited just even talking about this ride.
Wow.
If you thought Bruce was a dork, I love this ride so much because I think Lydia said it best. It shows it in a really simple way, farming, but in a fun, Disney way. And it shows I don't want to get too sciencey, but it does show the future that can be, you know, where we don't have like food deserts. Okay, I'm getting too geeky right here, but like it's such a cool way to like show people there's more to farming than just like crops in the ground. And Disney, you can do a behind the scenes tour as well, which I've always wanted to do. So that is definitely on my bucket list of things to do at Disney. And I know if you're an annual pass holder, DVC, you do get a discount on that tour. And that's one where you can go behind the scenes and look at the greenhouses, and a horticulturalist walks you around and talks to you about it. And then the other part I wanted to mention, oh, go ahead.
Where do you go to find like behind the scenes tours and like sign up for stuff like that?
I think you just go to Walt Disney World's, because Bruce, you've gone on a few tours before. You go to Disney's website?
Yeah, you can find it all on their website. There are tours. My favorite to date is the behind the scenes of World Showcase at Epcot. But you can take tours where you interact with the animals or go on a jungle trek at the Animal Kingdom. You can do it at Living with the Land. But you can find that all on your website, on Disney's website, excuse me. But if you are looking to book any of those tours or book a vacation, definitely check out our website. And one of our vacation planners can help you navigate that and get any of those behind the scene tours. So yeah. I think that we have probably, Elizabeth, we'll go one more point.
No, I was just going to say the one more point that I really like, not only the greenhouse, do I love like floating the boat into the greenhouse, but I love looking at the different ecosystems that they take you through. Again, super dork, but I find those to be so fascinating. And if you look at the different topography, you can really see what is offered.
Well, folks, that's all we have for our show tonight. Thanks for watching.
It's really cool the way that Disney talks about it, and with
there's more.
With going through those ecosystems, you also get a glimpse of Garden Grill, which is the restaurant right above the ride, and you can check that out when you go through the Midwest part of the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
That was all I was going to say.
Check out Garden Grill, where most of the food does come from Living with the Land. All right. Very good. Thank you for all the added support you had for my attraction, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. I don't know if it was fake or it was real, but I appreciate it. So,
you know me.
All right. Let's move on to our last pick, our last favorite boat ride. Elizabeth, what do you have for us? And it can't be Living with the Land.
It won't be.
All right.
Okay, so across the park into the World Showcase, I have Frozen Ever After is mine. And I know this is going to be opinionated for some people. A lot of people, including myself, were anticipating the change from Norway's Maelstrom, which was the old boat ride, to Frozen. And I know we've had this talk on here before of changing, those World Showcases into Disney movies, and should they do that, should they not do that? But I thought they did a really great job here with changing over from Maelstrom to the Frozen ride. The Frozen ride, if you have a child that loves Frozen, they are going to love this ride. We took our niece on it, and she absolutely loved this ride the first time she rode it. You get to see Elsa, you get to see Olaf, Anna, Kristoff, Sven, like all of them and their animatronics, and they take you on a really nice journey. It is still the same track as the old Maelstrom, so it can be a little jerky at times. And my favorite part in this whole ride is when they take you up the hill and then she's singing, her famous song, Let It Go, and they pull you back and you go flying through as she casts the spell to send you backwards. And it's just, I think they did a really great job on the, kind of like Pirates. They were able to tell the story of Frozen on a boat ride, and they were able to tell it well, and you get off the ride and you know what happens in Frozen. So if you've never even seen it. The other thing that I really liked about it is the loading dock area. You feel like you're in a little, Arendelle town, like right there, which I thought they did really great. And then I know, and Bruce, you can correct me, but they have some aspects of Maelstrom that they've kept from there just as a highlight to not forget that famous ride, which is good for those of us that aren't as appreciative of the change. So.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I want to comment that I think this is a great pick. I was a little nervous when they said that they were going to start incorporating Arendelle into the Norway Pavilion, especially changing out Maelstrom for Frozen Ever After. But I have to say, I really do think that the addition of Arendelle, the meet and greet, the attraction is a value add to the pavilion. I really do enjoy it. I think it's the way that they've aesthetically redone some of that pavilion is really great. And it really does do a nice job of blending the real Norway with Arendelle. And so I think the attraction is well done. You know, the animatronics on here are in the attraction are really new. So it's blank faces with projection CGI on them. So a new type of animatronic. And it's overall overall just a fun ride. And to your point, the queue inside is really cute, the Arendelle town. But I will say, if we were talking about fast passes earlier, this is a must-have fast pass because the line for this attraction can really get really, really long. So
very long. Yeah. Yeah, Bruce, I think they did overall, not just looking at the ride itself, but we could do a whole podcast of the countries. And they did such a good job with the addition of Arendelle to Norway that you don't even feel like it's just like one, you know, and you still have the history of Norway. So that's nice.
Exactly.
I think just hope that, go ahead, Hannah.
No, I was just going to say, I think that, like you said, Elizabeth, a lot of people, you know, are resistant, or it's a very controversial topic of whether or not to bring in the princesses and the characters into the countries. But like this has been done so seamlessly. And I think that it could get a lot of kids who wouldn't necessarily be super interested in the country pavilions excited about the pavilions, and then excited to learn about the countries and experience the different cultures because they can relate it back to a movie that they love. So I feel like the way that they've done this, could bode really well if they continue to do that and are able to execute it as well for some of the other countries.
I think you're absolutely right. And that's what I think they're starting to incorporate over in the France Pavilion with Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. That ride's coming over from Disneyland Paris and will be in Epcot later this year. And in my conversation with Val, an episode that we released a couple of episodes ago, we go into depth on Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. And I think it's going to be an attraction that will definitely get more people in the France Pavilion. And so to your point, I think there's a fine balance between adding fictional characters to World Showcase. And as long as they continue to toe that line and do it in a manner where we keep the cultural representation, but also get the interest of everybody, I think is a win for everybody.
Yeah, that's just the only thing I worry about is like, I don't want kids to look at Norway and be like, wait, this is a real place. And like, then it become like this, I don't know, like made up fantasy world and kind of then not respect the culture because of it. So I don't know. I was hesitant. I was one of those people that was like, they're putting Frozen into Norway. Like, it's just the hype. Like, it's going to calm down. But, you know, Frozen has proven to be like a great film franchise. And so, yeah, I think it's a good addition. I just think that they need to do that in the other countries if they're going to do it in Norway. Like, they can't just do it in Norway and then just France. Like, they're going to have to, I don't know, do it in every country.
Well, they have Mary Poppins coming to England. So I think we always say this to everyone's point, they will like add a little bit of that Disney flair, because I think that also gets people who aren't the like quote unquote like original Epcot before Disney IP came in type of situation. It gets them interested in coming to that park, because if you were to tell a family of 4, let's say with 2 small kids, oh, go to Epcot World Showcase, it talks about countries, versus go to Magic Kingdom where you can meet princesses and, ride rides, they're going to be like, I'm going to Magic Kingdom. Like that's not as interesting to them. So this can be a way to pull them over there.
I also feel like, and this could just be like my own observation, but within the past few years, Disney has been making films and content that is centered in other countries that just happen to be in the World Showcase. And so I'm wondering if like they're kind of going to go through them all and, come up with something that accurately represents that culture, but also is a great film. Like Coco is you know, it was like the highest grossing movie in Mexico because it was so culturally accurate in terms of like their Day of the Dead and how their family interacts. And so I think I would be fine getting rid of that duck ride in Mexico. I know Bruce loves the Mexico boat ride, but I would be fine with that. Yeah.
I would be fine with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they did have that little like Coco Pavilion. Yeah, but with Mulan coming out, you know, I mean, they already have Mulan there as a meet and greet, but it will be interesting to see if they do something more interactive with the movie coming out here. So.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. And I definitely think a larger discussion on World Showcase we could definitely have in a later episode because there's just so much there. So does anyone have anything to add before we wrap up? All right. Well, to our listeners and our viewers, thank you for tuning in this week. We appreciate you taking your time to listen to us. If you liked our content, subscribe to us on iTunes and on YouTube, and give this video a thumbs up. Follow us on Facebook at 407 and Beyond Vacation Company. And to stay in the know, check out our blog page at www.407vacations.com/in-the-know. So guys, until episode 14 next week, take care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.